I wanted to create a simple tutorial on how to do silk screening, and these are the supplies that you will need. You will need an embroidery hoop, and I would choose one that is old or one that you don't care too much about because it will get a little bit messy. Silk screen fabric, you can purchase this at the art supply store either by the yard or by the piece. Some fabric to print your image on. You'll need a spatula, a fine black permanent marker, 2 brushes, one fine and one wide. You will also need a screen filler, and this is a Speedball brand. You might be able to find other types of brand. They will all work the same, but this one is easier to find. You will need a drawing. A simple image works best. This card is going to be used as your squeegee, so just any type of old card will work fine. Masking tape and some black fabric ink. The first step is you want to stretch your silkscreen fabric. The hoop comes into 2 parts, so you have an inner and an outer piece. You want to take this off and you want to place the silkscreen fabric on top of the inner hoop like this, and then place the outer hoop on the outside. And you want to tighten this, and then as you tighten this, you also want to stretch this so that it's nice and taut. So I usually kind of tighten the hoop first and then I pull it. So just go around, just pull the fabric down, and just keep tightening it. So that should work. I'm going to now transfer the image, the drawing that I have onto the screen here. You want to keep in mind that depending on the size of your hoop, you don't want your image to fill this entire space. You want to make sure that when you're squeegeeing the ink, you have enough room to kind of move around. So that's why I have my image this scale. And when you're printing it, you actually are going to be printing it with the hoop flat like this onto the surface. And this will be the right way up. So you actually want to transfer your image the same way, and you want it right in the center so that you have enough space to put ink and to move your squeegee down. So I would do a little test just to see. I might kind of squeegee this direction, so there's enough room depending on which direction I'm going to go. And you want to place this down on top of your image very carefully, and then you're going to just trace around the image with your black Sharpie, and then I'll show you what the next step is after that. There's the image on our screen here. What you want to do now is flip it over, and then we're going to paint in the screen filler. My drawing here is a little wonky, but that's okay because when I paint on the screen filler, I could fix some of those little mistakes. When you get the screen filler, make sure you give it a really good shake before you start using it. And I also put a piece of newsprint down on my table because this stuff, when it dries really hard. So if you get this on surfaces, it might be hard to wash off. So be very careful and make sure that your surfaces are all covered. Anything like your table, you might, if you have like a surface you don't want to ruin, you might want to put a piece of plastic down first, then a piece of paper. You know, this is just precautionary, but if you're very careful painting this on, you'll be fine. So yeah, give it a good shake, and then what we're going to do is paint it around the image with the fine brush first, and then fill in the rest of the screen with the larger brush. Screen filler material is actually used for when you create a silk screen and sometimes the image doesn't come on very clearly. You would actually take a little bit of the screen filler and touch up your screen, and then that way when you're printing you won't get little like pinhole marks. And so it works really well to kind of fill in the space. What I would do first is take the fine brush and then just trace around the image. So the idea is that all the areas that you're covering up, filling, is the areas that are going to be blocking the ink, and then all the areas that are showing the silkscreen is where the ink is going to come through. And if you do make a mistake, it can't really be washed off, so just be really careful. That's why I start off with like a fine brush. And you want to make sure that your brush strokes are quite smooth. So you could see I'm kind of brushing them out just to flatten them. That way when you're squeegeeing, you're not gonna, it won't be like going through, over bumps. And it dries quite quickly. And what you're going to do is when you go over the areas, you're going to hold it up to the light after it dries, and then you're going to look through and see if there's any areas that are thin, like little bald spots where you could still see the light come through. And you might need to reapply this in that area or do a second coat, because the more dense the coat is, it's just going to help you to create a better print. I'm going to continue and finish off doing the fine painting, and then I'm going to show you what I do with the wide brush. I've done all the detail painting around the leaf, and I might add some polka dots on the leaf later. I haven't really quite decided yet, but I think that's what I'm going to do. Now what you're going to do is you're going to take the wide brush and you're going to fill in the whole rest of the screen. I also wanted to point out that this screen filler is actually water soluble, so you can wash it with just soap and water. So you're just going to brush it on, and I would go right up to the edge of your hoop because you don't want the ink to kind of seep out in those areas. I find this method, I know that my image is quite simple, but I find this method you can get a lot of really fine details that you wouldn't with a block print. And the image, when you print it, it's quite solid compared to a block print, because a lot of block printing, a lot of the times you get kind of some noise. So it's good to kind of just try different methods. You never know which one you'll like. Once you finish doing all of this, what you're going to do is just let it dry completely. And remember what I said, hold it up to the light and see if there's any sort of spots that you've missed. And then you could touch those areas up. And it's always really important before you do any type of printing like this to always do a test print first before you go on your good fabric. That way, if there's any areas that you did miss, it shows up, and then you can kind of fix it as you go. The screen filler has now dried, and I decided to put some polka dots on here, and I'm glad I did. It kind of gives it a little bit more texture. And now you're ready to print. Make sure that you have a piece of newsprint or scrap paper underneath your fabric, because if the ink seeps through, it won't get on your table. What you're going to do now is, I'm going to do this print multiple times. I'm going to create kind of a repeat pattern with the same image all over my cloth. And the first step is to put a bead of ink across here like this. And then you're going to take your little squeegee and then slide it through to make your first print. Okay, so that's what we're going to do now. Here's the finished fabric that I repeat printed of the leaves. I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Bye for now.